And again, I want to welcome everybody to the Four Seasons. Thank you for being here. We got a preview of this on Tuesday, and it's a very interesting, very exciting presentation, so I think you're going to enjoy it. First thing, I want to recognize some of our elected officials who are here. Mayor Pro Tem Cheryl Cole is here. Councilmember Chris Riley, I saw. In addition, I think Mike Martinez and Kathy Tovo, city council members, if they're not here, they're on their way. So thank you all for being here. We have former Mayor Travis County Commissioner Bruce Todd is here. And then we have Brandon Simon from Congressman Flores' office. And Sandy Guzman and Kate Alexander from State Senator Kirk Watson's office. So let's give everybody a round of applause. I'm also happy and pleased to see that we have several candidates for City Council and Mayor here today. So we appreciate all the candidates being here today and learning a little bit more about downtown. The Downtown Austin Alliance has long known that downtown Austin is the economic engine, not only of Austin, but of Central Texas. It's the place for a special night out, serves as a starting point for many of the region's 19 million annual visitors. Plus, we have 10,000 residents downtown who are joined every day by 125,000 people who come to the urban core daily for their jobs. But how can we begin to quantify what downtown means to our community? We have asked our speaker to do just that. Joe Mincozzi is the principal of Urban 3, which is an Asheville, North Carolina consulting company. Urban 3 was spun off from Public Interest Projects, a real estate developer in downtown Asheville. With a background in city planning, as well as private sector real estate finance, Joe has developed an award-winning analytic tools that have garnered national attention in, I practiced this last night and I can't say it, Planetson, the Wall Street Journal, Planning Magazine, Atlantic Cities, and others. He presented his work at conferences, including the Congress for New Urbanism, the American Planning Association, the International Association of Assessing Officers, that sounds like a blast, and the International Downtown Association, which I know from experience is a lot of fun. Many have seen his work as a paradigm shift in thinking about development patterns. Joe received his Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Miami and his Master's in Architecture and Urban Design from Harvard University. Please join me in welcoming Joe Mincozzi. Thank you.
The Assessors Conference is actually a lot of fun. You should try it sometime. So my challenge here today is to make some pretty complex information sort of simple. In looking at cities, they're very complex organisms, particularly downtowns. But I'm going to put a couple lessons up front for you, that how I look at cities and how I see cities changing over time and some of the lessons. For me, looking at cities is a lot like looking at people, that it has a DNA, a genetic material to it. So if you want to see how I started my life, this is how I started, and this is what I'm going to end up. So I actually had hair at one point. So you all do this, right? You have your family members that you look at, you see good habits and bad habits, you see things that you want to correct. Cities are no different. I spend a lot of time looking at this guy, again when I had hair, and we have two genetic issues in my family. I'm genetically Italian. You can obviously tell that from my name and how I move my hands a lot. But we also have a genetic predisposition to heart disease. So I have two things that I have to deal with. You know, my desire to eat a lot of food and my desire to not have a heart attack, right? So we have to balance that. I have to exercise and eat right, watch what I eat. Cities are no different. These habits that you have embedded in your genetic material, you've got to deal with. What kind of decisions are you making today will affect how you behave in the future. The other lesson I want to put up front, I know it's early, I'm going to ask you a quick little test. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to tell me how many shapes you see in this next image. This isn't pass or fail, it's just no one's going to get fined if they miss this, but just tell me how many shapes you see in this next image. Ready, go. Okay, who's got the answer? 18? 50? 16? Anybody want to go higher than 50? No? How many kids were on the school bus? Anyone? What time was it on the clock? You know, what's amazing about our brains, there's a book that actually gets into this. It's called Daniel Kahneman's book called Thinking Fast and Slow, and it gets into behavioral economics. That our brains are wired in ways to eliminate information. That I asked you a question, I manipulated the way that you saw this diagram. You didn't see the 5 kids on the bus, you didn't see that it was 10 after 10, right? So these are my lessons. Learning from other places, seeing what your family members are doing, but also how you look at data is really important. And then oftentimes that data is hiding in plain sight. But yet we've steered the conversation into looking at the wrong thing. So the question I want to put before you, this is my town, this is Asheville. You can see why they call it the Smoky Mountains. Is what is a city? How does a city function? So let's talk about Asheville. Asheville is, we are in the barbecue zone. We're just in the different animal of barbecue. We're in the pig section. And for those of you that are really culinary experts, we're definitely on the tomato side of the vinegar border, and we're not in the yellow sauce area. So now that we've got that straight. This is how Asheville started in the 1800s. This is a shot down Main Street. Who's been to Asheville? Anybody? Oh, great. Well, that's awesome. Thanks for shopping at our stores and eating in our restaurants and drinking our beer. By the way, we have more beer than you guys do. What's up with that? This is the same street 30 years later. We like to say that the 3 T's made Asheville: trains, tourism, and tuberculosis. Once the train lines came to Asheville, it brought a flood of tourism. We had the second streetcar line in the entire country. Presidents came to visit. Presidents still come to visit. We've had Obama 3 times. During the 1920s, we grew at 20% in population every single year through the decade. A lot of people don't realize this, but we were the second largest city in North Carolina, bigger than Charlotte, bigger than Raleigh. Through that, we achieved the highest debt per capita of the entire United States. We were number 1 in debt. And when the Depression hit, we thought we had $5 million in the bank. It turned out we had $18,000 in the bank, little clerical error. Our city council was indicted and the mayor committed suicide. That's how we entered the Depression. Thomas Wolfe, famous American author, had this to say about his hometown. Asheville has squandered fabulous sums. They've flung away the earnings of a lifetime. They have mortgaged those of a generation to come. They have ruined a city. And in doing so, they've ruined themselves, their children, and their children's children. Can you all say that about your elected officials in this town? You know, incidentally, he was saying this from New York City, and they said, please, don't ever come back here. You're not welcome in this town. So his second book was called You Can't Go Home Again, for obvious reasons. But he was right. It took us, we chose to pay off that debt rather than taking New Deal money in the 1930s, and it took us until 1976 to pay off that obligation. Through that process, we essentially couldn't take part of urban renewal programs, so we really couldn't damage ourselves too much. But when we did get out of that debt, we started cooking with gas. This is downtown. We cut a highway through the north side of downtown, which was the Crosstown Expressway. And the coup de grace was when we blew the mountain open in the Bowcatcher Cut, which is right here. I love that it's on the postcard. It's kind of awesome. And the mall went on the other side of the mountain, and the downtown died. So is this a familiar story for y'all on how your expansion affected your downtown? These are shots of downtown Asheville from not too long ago, the 90s. I mean, that's a 1996 Chevy Celebrity right there in the picture. I mean, look at these wonderful fixer-uppers. Just a little bit of elbow grease and this little investment can be yours, right? Just boarded up buildings, incredible pieces of architecture that was fallow. You can see all these upper stories just boarded up. We'd built the city and then vacated it. In some cases, aluminum was our answer. Let's just cover it up with aluminum and hope it disappears. But you can see that you can shoot a cannon off. This is Main Street, and you wouldn't hit a pedestrian. The de facto motto for those children's children, anytime somebody tried to fix downtown, that'll never work here, don't even try. You have some of these people here? I'm sure you're past that now, but a lot of people still resist what happens in the urban environment. So our firm was started by the man in the upper left. His name is Julian Price. He took his inheritance and essentially started a for-profit real estate development company. 75% of our money goes into the sticks and bricks, and 25% we reserve to seed entrepreneurs. We find people with incredible ideas and try to cultivate them into new businesses, like the Laughing Seed in the lower right here is the first vegetarian restaurant built in Asheville in the early 90s that banks wouldn't finance because they would go to their bank and show them the menu, and the banks would say, "Where's the pork? This is a pork steak. You can't do these vegetable stuff." So we put them in business. Asheville is one of the top 10 vegetarian cities in the entire country, but that was the first restaurant. So this is one of our buildings before and after. These units are 400 to 600 square feet unit apartments on Main Street. Who in this room would live in a 400 to 600 square foot apartment? Show of hands. Okay, let me change the question. Who in this room has lived in a 400 to 600 square foot apartment? That was our marketing survey right there. We saved $18,000 for hiring a PR firm for that. So, but you see that? I mean, it's basically just thinking about what cities are, that surely there's 24 units in there. Surely there's 24 people that are new to town, recently divorced, recently graduated, whatever. And this has been 99% leased up ever since. So the other thing that Julian did is he was a bit of an activist. We had our own newspaper, and this is one of the articles. He was constantly trying to raise the level of education to get people to understand what a city is. I love this quote that he used from Arthur Frommer. "Among cities with no particular recreation appeal, those that have preserved their past continue to enjoy tourism. Those that haven't receive almost no tourism at all. Tourism simply doesn't go to a city that's lost its soul," right? In a way, you could hear Thomas Wolfe again in that quote. And interestingly enough, 15 years after he published this, Frommer's Magazine would list this as the number 5 place in the country to visit. This is just a little town of 80,000 people in the middle of nowhere, in a beautiful environment, let's say, but they were able to change their direction. But for us, it's what does the data do? How does the data function in the city? I love this quote from Michael Bloomberg. You know, if we can bring data to the community, that's what we do around Asheville, but now we're doing it nationally. So what we were seeing in our downtown was worth $104 million back in 1991 when us and a bunch of other developers started cultivating the change in downtown. And just by fixing buildings that were already there, assets that were already in the portfolio, these first 2 steps happened. So the city was a cooperative investment. The city invested about $26 million back in the early 90s into streetscapes and stuff like that, and it cultivated a private sector return of over $500 million. Think about that. That portfolio was already there. We just cultivated new wealth. So for us, it's land as a product. We think of land buildings like crops. When a farmer goes out and tills the soil, the farmer thinks of things economically. How many crops per acre? What's the return per acre? What's the fertilizer per acre, et cetera? If you do the same thing with buildings, this is one of our buildings. Ground story retail, second floor office, upper stories residential. The city invested in a streetscape project, and in our community, we took it on the chin. We were accused of being subsidized by the public sector by getting a garbage can, a bike rack, 2 benches, and a street tree, right? So let's do the math on that. That's about $26,000 worth of investment at our front door. Let's go, we'll own that. All right, thank you. It's ours, even though everybody in the world can walk on that. The building was worth $300,000 on the tax rolls. By us fixing the building, it's gone up to about $11 million worth of value. That's a 3,500% tax hit, right? That's one way of looking at it. We've been penalized 3,500% for fixing the building. But now the way that we see it is our community now can afford 3,500% more stuff, right? That we now pay more taxes that can be used for other things, new greenways, whatever, affordable housing. Anybody in the room have a 401k plan that grows by 3,500%? You know, think about that. That our community is an asset portfolio. Our community has grown and cultivated more wealth on an asset through our help. So people say to me, you know, Joe, that's an $11 million building. We've got this Walmart over here that's worth $20 million. You know, that's astounding, right? Well, let's go ahead and throw me in. This is me, my wife Caroline. These are my dogs. My dogs think they're lions. They're a little weird. But we like to put them out there like that just to freak our neighbors out. But Caroline and I live on a tenth of an acre. We pay $2,000 in taxes, right? So if we had a 1-acre cookie cutter that dropped into my neighborhood, it hit 10 houses, each paying $2,000 or $20,000 an acre. If you take that same 1-acre cookie cutter, float it over to Walmart, Walmart's paying $210,000 in property taxes, but it took 34 acres to get there. So on a per acre basis, that's $6,500. If you had an acre of our building, that's $634,000. What would you rather have? Now, I was presenting this in Denver. I wanted to drive the point home for them. And I said, look, folks, if you had an acre of land to grow something in Denver, what are you going to grow? Wheat, soybeans, or marijuana? And they got it. This joke works in Asheville, too, by the way. Did y'all get that? I mean, it's a cash crop. Buildings are cash crops. And how you choose your development patterns affects your taxable basis. So you're probably thinking, well, Joe, there's retail sales too. So let's go ahead and remove Caroline and I, and let's run the numbers on the retail sales. A typical Walmart's about $77 million of retail sales. When you run the math on it, the city just gets a portion of that, or about $47,500, or a total tax bill of retail plus property taxes of $51,000 an acre. Just the property taxes to the city of our building is $330. You add the retail taxes, you're cooking with gas. Jobs per acre. I mean, how do y'all want to look at this? When you normalize things in an apples and apples way, you just see that you get more revenue, more return in those dense environments. Now, if we think about our grandparents, we built cities for 10,000 years. We do it because it's efficient. This experiment we've been going through in the last 50 years is truly an experiment, and it's inefficient. So this is the reason why we have cities the way that they are. Did y'all get this? This chart, one of my friends calls this the Moneyball chart of cities. I don't know if y'all have ever read Moneyball. I should get a residual. Read the book. It's awesome. It's technically about baseball, but it's really a business book. So realize what I'm doing here isn't complex math. I'm just normalizing things into the unit of land, right? So that's the city side. There's also a county side to it as well. You see that cities sit on top of counties and pass through county taxes. So we ran the numbers on that as well. So this is residential. And you see the average city resident is producing about $1,700 in county taxes, while the average county resident outside the city is producing about $1,200. So cities actually produce more county revenue than on the county side. You bring them all into it at about $8,000 an acre of county taxes, and you see why somebody might choose commercial over residential. Well, let's not stop there. Let's go into downtown. And here's our building's effect in county taxes versus the mall at the center of the chart here at $8,000. Our building's producing $250,000. What I'm trying to do is change the paradigm of how we're looking at our government from a private sector perspective. And for those of you, I'll read the bottom line here. This is Webster's Dictionary, the definition of incorporation. Incorporation is the forming of a new corporation. The corporation may be a business, a nonprofit, a sports club, or a government of a new city or town. For those of you that are running for office, you're essentially running for the board of directors of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, right? This is how cities run. They pay taxes to pay for infrastructure, so it works as a business. We have a $13 million portfolio. That's our asset. My city is a corporation that's made up of citizens. The county's a corporation as well. So we've got two board of directors that operate portfolios that contain a larger amount of assets than our building. So back to the question of a city. Our city is a finite boundary of land. Your city is a finite boundary of land. Your county is a much more finite boundary. Travis County doesn't go out and annex the next county over. It's got to deal with what it's got. So Asheville is a $10 billion corporation, which is 3 times Donald Trump's portfolio wealth. We're 3 times the Donald, right? What I want to try to drive home here is how we compare these things and how we look at the money. Just to run through an example of cost-benefit, we did a study in Sarasota, Florida. Is this all too nerdy for first thing in the morning? Y'all get this? If a developer builds this godforsaken place somewhere in Arizona, if I were to build this, I hope nobody's from here, but when I build this, I have hard costs and soft costs. I have permit fees, I have what I have to pay the architect. I also have the sticks and bricks that I have to build. And I keep accounting of all of that, put on my profit, and have to sell that out, divide it by the rooftops. When government gets this thing plugged onto this road at the top of the page here, does the government go out there and figure out the cost of this thing and then tax it based on cost? And the short answer is no. And I'm not the first person to come onto this idea. It's actually this guy here with this document called The Cost of Sprawl. Did y'all know the Nixon administration coined that term, sprawl? And in that book, they actually isolated out what different costs are of different land use patterns, what the community cost is to a developer's decision in your community. So the state of Florida did a similar document where they priced out different infrastructure costs per dwelling unit. At the top of the page, we have a residential unit in the downtown. At the bottom of the page, we have a residential unit way out in the burbs in Wellington, Florida. And you see as you spread people out, the cost goes up. And it's real simple, folks. If you have a mile of pipe and you put 10 people on it, it's a mile divided by 10. If you have 10,000 people on it, it's a mile divided by 10,000. It's just more efficient when you put more people on it. So we took a couple of the numbers, went out and grabbed some suburban multifamily literally at the edge of the county. This is the edge of the county line, this highway here. And then we went into the downtown and plucked out the same number of units, 357 units out in the burbs, 357 units in the core of the city, and let's let them compete apples to apples from a taxable basis. So in dark green, you have the land consumed of the downtown stuff, and then the land consumed in light green for the burbs. So it's 1/10 the land consumed for the same number of people. It costs 57% as much to put the infrastructure into the ground in the urban environment versus the suburban environment. Yet you're making 870% more revenue out of the taxes. And we're not making this up. We just went into the tax rolls and just did the math. So think about that. Costs you less, you make more revenue. So how long, if the $10 million note for the suburban environment were my mortgage, and let's take, Charlie's mortgage is $5.7 million, how long will it take the two of us to pay off at this annual rate? It basically takes 42 years to pay off the suburban environment and 3 years to pay off the urban environment. In real estate development world, we have this term ROI, return on investment. So I can run a return rate on this. So basically, it's an 18% return rate for the urban environment. It's a 2% return rate for the suburban pattern. So if y'all could make an investment, what kind of return do you want to have, 18% or 2%? 18, right? I was showing this in Idaho, and there was seriously a bunch of real cowboys in the room with guns and vests and hats and everything. And Joe, these are way too many charts for cowboys. Just show it to us in year 20. This is the effect. So after 20 years, the communities harvested $34 million past their investment, paid it off. They're still in the hole $5 million with the suburban pattern. So part of the choices people make in their lifestyle is essentially subsidized by the cash flow of how we operate cities. If you're not asked to pay your mortgage back, you're going to make that choice, right? So this is what's happening in a pattern at a larger level. So I love this quote from Chief Justice Brandeis. These are just the relentless rules of humble arithmetic. We're just doing simple math to run the numbers to see how this all works. We've done it all across the country, and we see the same pattern. For every dollar of county taxes a county resident's paying, a city resident is paying about $8 per acre versus the county resident. The Walmart's somewhere around $7. The mall's about double a Walmart. As soon as you get to a two-story building, it shoots up to about $77 of taxes to the county per acre. A three-story building is about $120. What we see here is it's not a proportional growth, it's an exponential growth. The more stories you add. And it's real simple, folks. For every story you're adding, it's a new layer of cash flow. And in the urban core, you see a tremendous amount of return to the community. What I'm doing with all of this is thinking about land as an efficiency model. And we do this with cars, right? We don't think about cars on a miles per tank basis, do we? Did y'all do that? You talk to your neighbors and friends about their miles per tank? Because if you did, you'd all be driving Ford F-150s at 650 miles per tank. I mean, you see how silly that is, right? We say miles per gallon because we know gasoline is finite. I just changed the question, and look, the numbers changed. And we should all be driving BMW Asettas at 70 miles per gallon. Sorry to your Prius owners in the audience, but 1955 technology beats 2012. Y'all get this? We're just basically normalizing the unit of land to what is the cost-affected commodity. And I have yet to find a community where an acre of land is less expensive than a gallon of gas. If we're doing it for a $4 commodity, shouldn't we be doing it for a $40,000 commodity? So the more we bring decisions, this is my napkin sketch of data. So as we increase data and evidence, we can increase your community's ability to make decisions. The same with me. I've learned from my dad's heart surgery that I don't want to have that. I've got data and evidence now of something that I want to decide. So let's talk about Austin. I know that's what you all are here for. We have tools to bring data. We have X-ray technology. I can show you hard tissue. I can even show you where your molars are and your fillings. That's one form of information with technology. We can actually change the equipment and get different data. So I can go from hard tissue to soft tissue. I can even do three-dimensional images of brains, right? Let's use that same technology for your community. Let's check your economic MRI. So this is Travis County. This is your miles per tank version. This is how the community tends to look at real estate. And you can see up in the north end, you can pretty clearly see some red spots. So the hotter the color, the higher the value. Gray is non-taxable. The green colors are low value per acre. The high values are in purple. And you see some reds up here in the north part of the county. If you flip it to value per acre so you can see the potency of tax productivity, the colors change and the maps change. All of a sudden it turns a little bit kind of yellow up here and you start to see the downtown pop out as a hot core. We're normalizing the land on a unit rather than the parcel size. So this is what it looks like in 3D. It's one thing to see it in 2D, you really don't know the steps and the colors, but look at the difference. Can you all spot where downtown is? There it is. This is where it peaks out right about there. So look at the step difference between purple and red, and then down again to yellow and then green. This is your productivity of how your community looks at a county level. This is just the city limits, and this is the city limits here. Again, the miles per tank. And again, you see at the north side of town, this office park and commercial area along 35 at red. And again, go to value per acre, and boom, the map changes. Now here's downtown popping out. Here's a 3D of just your city. This is what Austin looks like from a valuation perspective. So where are you getting your money? And it's pretty clear right there, right? Zooming into the downtown, we start to see some purples. This is just the downtown's model. By the way, this one here that pops out way up to here, it's unbelievable that you get this kind of value in your community. Now, realizing that this garden that you have of the downtown, 32% of it is exempt. So the downtowns typically have they have more government buildings and things like that. This is not even getting into your state buildings and state offices are north of downtown. Your central business district is a boundary south of that. I know that you all tend to function with the Capitol as part of downtown, but from a zoning perspective, it's really not. So when I say downtown, it's that boundary south of the Capitol. When you get to the city, 15% of your city is exempt, and at the county, at the county it's 15% exempt, at the city it's 26%. So downtown is carrying a burden of exempt land at a higher rate than the city and the county. So that's one way of looking at data. There's other tools that we can use. This is a map from 1921 that distorts the map based on value. So visually you can see really quickly where the value is. New York is the #1 energy producer or consumer on the map, so it's the #1 size. Wisconsin comes in at number 10, so you see it's 1/10 the size of New York, right? So visually you can see that information really quickly. So let's do the same thing with your county. This is your county. This is your county's cartogram. So look at how downtown feels to the county from an economic standpoint. So that little area right there, in that little square, feels like 68 times the potency. Did y'all get that? For those of you that run a business, if you had one person in your office producing 68% of the office's sales, how would you feel about that employee? And I think it's awesome. So we had other data sets. We had other family members to compare. We happen to have Nashville, which is on the left, Charlotte, which is Mecklenburg County on the right. There wasn't really a rhyme or reason based on boundaries. You have a different kind of county shape. Yours is more like almost like a bow tie, so it's kind of necks down in the middle. But these are just pulling together. We're looking for ways to compare them. Your city is incredibly potent. Austin takes up 24% of the land area, which is the top pie chart. This is the footprint of the city of Austin. On the bottom is your tax effect in property tax productivity to the county. So that's how much of the budget you all are paying at the city level to the county. Comparing you against Nashville, sorry, this is kind of washed out, but Nashville's peaking out about here. Y'all are peaking out right about here. You have a similar peak, and then you have this kind of value neck that goes out, in both cases, toward the university. In Nashville's case, it heads toward Vanderbilt. In your case, it heads toward UT. So this is looking at your downtown here. This is the UT campus. Then you have this kind of spine of value that slides out along by the university. The universities cultivate wealth. That's from a density standpoint. You can get a higher number of students there because they don't have cars. Students are also really good retail generators. 20-year-olds don't have bottoms in their pockets. It's just the money just falls out in the street. And beer purchases and whatever. But there's also a tale of two transits. You have Charlotte has a transit line. You all have a transit line. Two different kinds of animals. We have Charlotte on the left, the Lynx line, and your Metro Rail on the right. The first thing to notice is the length of Charlotte's is a lot shorter than yours. About 1/3 the distance. They have many more stops. It's kind of not an apples to apples comparison. It's more like an apples to oranges comparison. What Charlotte's able to achieve is they have a dedicated transit line. There's no other freight on the line. They designed that line to cultivate wealth closer into the community rather than spread it out across multiple counties. Shorter distances. They also have a higher frequency rate of travel, and they also a longer time. Their line runs from 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. So it's designed for a different kind of commuter. So in looking at the value, we wanted to say, well, what's the difference then? What do we get? This is your downtown, and then we did a transit-oriented development core, like a 5-minute walk around each train station to grab the value. So those are the little mountains that go out at each train stop on the Austin line. So dropping off the downtown, these are the spikes of value that you get cultivating your wealth inside Austin. This is what Charlotte's looks like. And there's their downtown on the right. And you see the first train stop outside of the downtown is incredibly potent. And that's the mountain there. So what they're able to achieve, they're averaging about $1.3 million of value per acre inside their transit stops. Y'all are just cultivating about 650,000. So they're doubling their return on that investment. Does that all make sense? Are you guys getting this? I mean, is this too much? How that looks from a chart perspective, the blue line is your valuation. So you have a really potent downtown your downtown's killing it compared to Charlotte's downtown. But you can see how they've cultivated the wealth in their line. They're the yellow one. So they're actually able to harvest a big chunk of value inside the city limits that you all are missing that opportunity on. And it's partially due to how the line functions. So that's your opportunity for your city, and again, for the county. Those properties will be paying taxes to the county as well. That's one of the messages there. Looking at other data, your state allows us to get retail taxes at a zip code level. So we grabbed all of the zip codes that affect Travis County. Travis County is that kind of bluish area in the center. So unfortunately, the zip codes cross county lines, so it's actually a 6-county study that we did. This is your mixed beverage sales productivity. So as the 78704, there's some drinkers there, man. You got to thank those people. They're really keeping up with downtown. But just to let you know, this map is illegal in the state of North Carolina. We can't get this data, nor can we get this data, which is the hotel sales per acre. And you see downtown killing it. The one that comes in second is the Rosedale Burnett Road area. At a very distant second, by the way. This is your retail and food sales. And again, downtown is killing it. Just to show you something here, look at the width of the whole map here. See how wide that is? As we start to get into the retail, look at how the map shrinks because of how high this spike gets. So proportionally speaking, your retail and food sales is much more impressive than the mixed beverage. Did y'all get that? So downtown, which is a mixed-use environment, it's got residential, it's got offices, it's got government buildings, it's still a potent producer of retail sales. And it's those little purchases, it's the purchases I make as a tourist when I come here, it's the purchases that you all that shop and live and work downtown are making every single day add up. This is the total combined sales of taking all of those charts together and stacking them up. And you see downtown shooting up to the top of the slide. Again, number 2 is the 78756, which is the Rosedale-Burnett area. When you add in the property taxes, it gets obscene. You can't see it, but the top of the spike is at the top of that line there, again, for the central business district. So the value productivity, we wanted to show that graphically. This is how it looks. This is your MRI of productivity. Did y'all get that? So taking in the downtown plus the other areas, how you visualize your own downtown. A lot of folks in the community kind of see it going up to Koning. It's that blue area there, that map, takes up 1% of the county's land area, but produces 12% of the county's revenue. That's incredibly potent for the county. Let's just kind of recap. So when we see our community, we see it through these buildings. So there's the Walmart on the top. That's the Domain on the bottom. The Domain's about, let's say, $730,000 an acre. The Walmart at the top, somewhere around $780,000 an acre. So I'm going to go ahead and keep the Walmart in the upper right, so you have a control subject. Everybody's got a Walmart or a big box. They're all about the same value. These are your office parks, the 3M campus and the Samsung out on the northern part of your county, kind of northwest. Samsung's at about $675,000. The 3M campus is about $550,000. Less value production than the Walmart. You get into South Park Meadows, and by the way, I love that name, and you can see the meadow right there in the front, right? I don't know why they would do that, but so that's 1.2 million an acre. Barton Creek Mall's pulling about, let's give it 2 million an acre, right? Much more potent than the Walmart. When you get into the downtown, you expect value. So you see these two buildings here, 108 million and 123 million an acre of productivity. Big buildings, big value, right? It's kind of interesting that the One American is actually more productive than the Frost Bank Tower, but still that's potent. Look at it compared to the Walmart. Let's give the Walmart a bonus. Let's put it up to 800,000 an acre. You know, so you see the productivity. But it's crazy the other buildings that get value too. These three here are averaging around, let's say, 35 million an acre of value. Again, productivity. You don't have to be big buildings downtown. You can be at the edge of downtown. This is the Whole Foods headquarters at about 19 million an acre. And even stuff that's happening as infill across the river in South Congress at about 9 million an acre, or about 10 times more potent than a Walmart. And then this is the big breadwinner. This building's amazing. It's $487 million an acre of value. This is more potent on 1 acre than some towns that we've studied. You know? It's 620 times the potency of that Walmart. Think about that. Is the owner or developer of this thing in the room? I mean, really, he should be standing at the door and everybody just give him a group hug on the way out. This is incredibly productive for your county. But there's also a lesson in lasting value, these historic buildings that you have in your community as well. I know that you're going to, it's easy. A skyscraper, yeah, it's a lot of value. This is a shot from 1912 down Congress. And on the left is the Scarborough building that was built in 1908. That building has been in your portfolio for over 100 years, and it's producing about 39 million value per acre. Think about that. Your great-grandparents have left you an asset that's a high producer. Is that Walmart going to be here 100 years from now? You know, is the South Park Meadows going to be here 100 years from now? These are decisions that are happening in your community and their productivity of how you can pay for things. You can cultivate your wealth. This is the Littlefield, one of my favorite buildings, 60 million an acre. We all know this building. This is the Driscoll. This is a postcard from 1886 when it was first built. Here it is at 68 million an acre. You know, these are your high-performing blue-chip stocks inside your portfolio. Now, just to kind of run through the chart, I'm not going to go through this whole thing. I'll just kind of describe this visually for you all. This is the taking an abstract pull out of the three-dimensional model and just showing the county's tax productivity per acre. On the left, in blue, blue is residential, red is single-use commercial, green is mixed use. But you see down here at the way left, this is county single-family here. It's producing, county single-family is producing about $3,000 an acre to the county. City single-family is paying about $5,000 an acre to the county. Here's the Walmart right here at about $4,000. This is downtown's average right here at about $100,000 an acre in county taxes in dark green, compared to $4,000 an acre to the Walmart. Here's the Driscoll at $336,000 or $335,000 an acre in taxes. And then at the far right here is the Hotel Intercontinental, producing more county taxes per acre than One American, which is immediately to the left. $611,000 an acre. If the Intercontinental folks are here, give them a hug too. Our original model actually had the Austonian on it, and it was kind of distorted. Look how big that is. $2.4 million an acre in county taxes alone coming out of that building. Impressive. So basically, to recap, if you had 1.1 acres of B.D. Riley's there, that would equal the 20-acre Walmart, right? Apples to apples, productivity. If you have 1.8 acres of the Intercontinental, that would equal the 172-acre South Park Meadows. Apples to apples. So yes, it's more difficult to get 1.8 acres or 2 acres built, but you see what you can get as a return on that. If you had 7.2 acres of the AMLI downtown, that little low-rise courtyard building, 7.2 acres of that would equal the 175-acre Galleria out at Bee Cove. Apples to apples. This is the productivity to your county. Did y'all get this? So because we have the data, you know, part of what we hear in a lot of places is, well, people make development choices. This is how people want to live. The most obscene example that I've ever seen is Gwinnett County, Georgia. Anybody from Georgia or know Gwinnett County, Georgia? It was kind of fascinating. It's my ghost of Christmas future if you want to choose this path. What happens if you 100% suburbanize a county? So Gwinnett County, Georgia, here's Atlanta down here. They're the next county over, and they see themselves as this. They actually told me they were rural. And I was like, all right, great, whatever. I don't understand. I just pulled data. And they're like, we're not city people like Atlanta. We're rural. So we pulled their data. This is DeKalb County. This is part of Atlanta, is in DeKalb. These are people per square mile. The next county over, Gwinnett County, is pulling about 1,900 people per county. When I was presenting this to Gwinnett County, I was like, hey, y'all, what's going on here? This is Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, at just a little over 1,700 people per square mile, less dense than Gwinnett County. What's in Mecklenburg? And exactly. I'm like, how the hell did you get denser than Charlotte in Mecklenburg County, and your biggest town is Lawrenceville? Anybody ever heard of Lawrenceville, Georgia? Yeah, one person back there. So what does that mean from a value standpoint? Incidentally, Gwinnett County, if you go back to Gwinnett County, by the way, you can tell them that they're denser than Austin. Here's Travis County, Texas, right here, at about 1,000 people per square mile. And then we have Raleigh, and then this is my county down here. This is Asheville, at about 350 people per square mile. I think that's a little bit more rural than Gwinnett County. So from a valuation standpoint, here's what they've cultivated from wealth. At the right, we have Gwinnett County pulling at the top end of their model, $8 million an acre. Y'all are on the left there at $476 million an acre. Does that make sense? I mean, it's just, you've cultivated a downtown. Those intentional actions that you all have done over decades. This is not easy work, you all know that. But you've harvested wealth for your entire region in the process. So is Nashville, so is Charlotte. All of those places to the left of Gwinnett are less dense than Gwinnett. So when people throw that density term around, it doesn't necessarily mean high-rises everywhere. You can actually build ridiculous density in one-story buildings the way that Gwinnett did. When we did their model, we're just like, what the hell? Where's the spot? You know, typically we see a concentration. We turn the model on the side and we're just like, what the hell's going on here? It's just like a big thick carpet. You know, this is what we typically see. This is Chapel Hill. You can see where downtown Chapel Hill is. You can also see the next towns over in Carborough and Hillsborough. I don't have to tell you where Main Street is. You can see it on the map, right? This is, you can't really see it this way. I'll make it brighter for you, but we have Nashville on the left, Austin in the center, and then Gwinnett County on the right. So we just made a heart monitor so we could see the economic pulse of growth here, right? Now, just from the numbers standpoint, Gwinnett County, or sorry, I mislabeled this, sorry. On the left is Nashville. Davidson County is 650,000 people in the county. Y'all are at 1 million, and at the right we have 800,000. So there's the pulses. So you see that Nashville's cultivated 193 million an acre. Y'all have cultivated 476, and they're basically flatlining at about 8 million an acre. Did y'all get that? Now, in all of the system, I'm coming to the closing points here, there are behavioral ways that we as developers work inside your community. There are tricks to the built environment that will actually show you what's going on from a policy standpoint. In England, people were taxed on the number of windows they had for 100 years because glass was expensive and that was a way to gauge wealth. The more windows you had, the higher your tax rate. Over 100 years, look what people did. They boarded up their windows to avoid the taxes. They threw the tax out. In France, you were given essentially a density bonus, the land above the roof line. So down here we have the roof line, right? And they used the mansard roof style to stick stories up in the roof. There wasn't a design guideline that made people to do it. It was the tax code. So when you went out there to get assessed, basically would say, oh, no, you cannot tax me for this. This is clearly the roof, right? So we see these things in patterns inside the communities. You've got two values of real estate. You've got the value of the dirt, and you've got the value of the land on top of the dirt. We'll go in with the model and the data and just remove all the buildings and just look at how dirt's valued. This is probably the most obscene example that we've seen. This is Cheyenne, Wyoming, and when I was presenting to the community, I was showing this map. So this is the value per acre of dirt, just the dirt, no buildings. And I was like, what's going on here where this is ice blue, and as soon as you cross the street, it jumps from basically $15,000 an acre to $35,000 an acre. The dirt value, just by crossing the street, doubles. It's the same zoning. What's going on there? And the tax assessor was sitting in the front row, and she raises her hand. And she's like, you don't understand. And I said, what don't I understand? And she goes, well, the more land you have, the lower the value. That was kind of the reaction in Cheyenne. Actually, I think the mayor almost spat his coffee out through his nose. And I was like, wait, hang on a second. So if I've got 3/4 of a mile of road right here, 3/4 of a mile of road right here, another half mile and half mile, I've got 3 miles of infrastructure. I've got more frontage. I've got more development capacity because it's a bigger site, so I can put more stuff on it. If I put more stuff there, I'm probably going to have more trips, more car accidents, fire calls, probably have more commerce, more theft. I get more services and you give me a discount? She's like, yeah, that's our standard. I'm like, where'd you get this standard from? Did Moses deliver it to you? I presented this at the International Association of Assessing Officers. They actually got a kick out of it. So, and it was funny. I asked them, I'm like, where'd the standard come from? And they're all like, we don't know. But you should talk to Larry Clark. I'm like, really? You just have to go talk to Larry? All right. So I talked to Larry. He thought it was a little weird too, but anyway. So in looking at your patterns, we see the same thing. You see, this is just the dirt value in Austin. You see just inside, let's just take this one block right here where the cursor is. Inside one block, look at the disparity of value for the dirt. We go from less than $430,000 an acre to over $5 million an acre just on one block, just by crossing an alley. So again, these are things that, it's mathematics that's built inside a mathematical model that's on a spreadsheet, but you can use this tool to visualize it and to adjust. You see it both in residential and commercial. Again, here's residential on the right. This is a commercial area here. And you see the disparity just by crossing the street and the parcel size. So realize these aren't invisible market forces that are making me behave a way as a developer. I'm finding paths of least resistance to benefit my development pattern. And some policies that you all have can actually be impactful. Put the gun down. So just to close, Travis County is worth $111 billion. That's with a B. That's more valuable than every professional sports team that you have in the entire state, right? Your county officials think that way. You're managing, the city is managing 10 times the value of all of those teams. From the downtown's perspective, you're more valuable than all of these teams on here. Or another way of putting it, since this week has been kind of awesome for Texas, your downtown at $4 billion of value is about 7.4 times the Spurs, right? Does the owner of the Spurs know what Tim Duncan's towel bill is? Of course. You know, our nightclub, that's just basically a tenant in our building, we know we were part of the decision when they moved from plastic cups to cornstarch compostable cups, from going from a 3-cent a cup decision to a 5-cent a cup decision. We ran the math to make sure that we could still afford the beer prices, that our community would still purchase beer. If we're doing that for a couple penny decision, are you doing this for larger multi-million-dollar decisions? Are you getting a return on investment, the bang for your buck, for different types of developments? And that's just the challenge I want to leave for you all in the choices that you make. And you have to measure these things. If you're not measuring it, you can't manage it. If you're not looking at the data, you're not seeing what's really going on. I can tell you what's inside the bag of a potato chips. I can tell you the sodium content, the fat content. Shouldn't we be doing the same thing for buildings? And realize these are all choices. I make choices on my diet, right? We do this. I'd love to eat key lime pie every night, but there's an effect on me. These choices that you all make with this data going forward are really critically important. And just do the math, and I want to thank you for all of this time. Thanks.